One of the many great ironies of the 2008 election is that there is little doubt that the Obama rocket ship was allowed to get off the launching pad largely because the news media was so certain that Hillary Clinton was going to be the Democratic nominee that it saw no purpose in betting and pointlessly harming a smart, charismatic, liberal black man with such a promising future.
Hi, I'm Bishop E.W. Jackson. In January 1776, Peter Muhlenberg stood before his congregation and said, "I am a clergyman, but I hold my freedom as dear as any man." Over 200 years later, I stand before you as a clergyman, and I believe that our freedom is threatened. Please consider carefully what you are about to see. The ill-defined change he promised sounded treacherous to an increasing number of wary Americans. Was he guilty of miscommunication or intentional deception? Many believe that Obama cleverly disguised his real agenda behind a facade of platitudes and positioning himself as an outside-the-establishment reformer. If so, it was a porous facade. Even during the campaign, he revealed schemes that had been discredited thoroughly in other parts of the world.
Your new tax plan is going to tax me more, isn't it?
And I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
The phrase "spread the wealth around" may seem harmless to some. To others, it was a clear invitation to adopt the destructive ideology of leftist revolutionaries. Among the public and from the media, it should have ignited debate over Obama's intentions, like whose wealth is to be spread around, and who would be the beneficiaries of the money Obama planned to confiscate. It wasn't the only time Obama displayed tendencies that some labeled socialist. A public radio interview in 2001 features in-depth details about his regard for the U.S. Constitution.
Generally, the Constitution is a charter of negative liberties, says what the states can't do to you, says what the federal government can't do to you, but it doesn't say what the federal government or the state government must do on your behalf.
These sentiments should have been revealed and widely panned by the mainstream media, which in turn should have demanded that Obama explain how exactly he intended to govern outside the bounds of the Constitution, but no such scrutiny was forthcoming. Obama was allowed to ride a bad economy that he continually derided in the most exaggerated terms, always blaming George W. Bush and capitalism, all the way to the most powerful position on earth.
Did not run for office to be helping out a bunch of fat cat bankers on Wall Street.
But he is making billionaire George Soros richer. Soros spent tens of millions of dollars through front groups and shell organizations to get Obama elected president and other progressive Democrats elected to Congress. Not long after Obama took office, Soros was allowed to buy the troubled IndyMac Bank after it was taken over by the government under terms very favorable to Soros. And then IndyMac was awarded over $2 billion of American taxpayer money through the Troubled Assets Relief Program, doled out by the Obama bureaucracy.
What you need to do in the short term is almost the exact opposite of what you have to do in the long term. So as the credit is collapsing, we actually have to replace it by using the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
President Obama's words and actions seem clear. He does not view America with an America-centric perspective, but instead from an outsider's point of view, often with hostility.
Assalamu alaikum. One of the points I want to make is that if you actually took the number of Muslims Americans, we'd be one of the largest Muslim countries in the world.
Let there be no doubt, Islam is a part of America.
Instead of standing up for America, he bowed to the king of Saudi Arabia. When radical Muslim Major Hassan massacred 13 and wounded 33 at Fort Hood Army Post, Obama issued this warning to American citizens.
And I would caution against jumping to conclusions until we have all the facts.
The goodwill Obama and other Democrats always shower upon those hostile towards America never seems to extend to fellow countrymen here at home. When the state of Arizona passed a law protecting their southern border with Mexico, by essentially enforcing federal law that had long been abandoned to neglect, Attorney General Eric Holder was swift with condemnatory rhetoric, as well as a federal lawsuit against the state. And Democrats were vociferous in their personal attacks against Arizonans, even though so many had actually failed to read the law and knew none of its details.
Have you read the Arizona law?
I have not had a chance to. I've glanced at it. I have not read it.
I might ask, have you had a chance to review the new law that was passed by the state of Arizona?
I have not reviewed it in detail. I certainly know of it, Senator.
And when Mexico's president, Felipe Calderón, attacked America on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, he received a standing ovation from the congressional Democrats. Obama led a charge of fellow Democrats in attacking the Supreme Court's decision affirming the right of free speech in political elections. Obama has repeatedly attacked a group of private citizens simply because they wanted their voices heard.
Right now, all around this country, there are groups with harmless sounding names like Americans for Prosperity, who are running millions of dollars of ads against Democratic candidates.
Many see Obama's attacks on these Americans as indefensible, considering his own reliance on such constitutionally protected free speech. During his presidential election, he wound up with a record-shattering $750 million in his campaign. To this day, he refuses to report from whence it came. One reason might be that some of it originated from the terrorist group Hamas, which also endorsed Obama for president.
I do believe that Obama's chances more than Mr. McCain, and that's why we count on this change in the American foreign policy to be more fair and impartial.
While routinely mocking Americans who have suspicions that he doesn't share their view of America, Obama has appointed a cadre of unaccountable public officials with unusual authority, many of them purveyors of extraordinarily extremist views.
Give them the wealth! Give them the wealth!
Van Jones, self-avowed and unabashed communist, was appointed to the position of Green Job Czar. He held that position until his controversial views led to his resignation. Jones believed the September 11th terrorist attacks were staged by the U.S. government. Other appointees include Karl Browner as Energy Czar, who was a commissioner for the Socialist Internationale, an anti-American conglomerate of socialist and labor parties around the world.
We kind of agree with Mao that political power comes largely from the barrel of a gun.
Ron Bloom was formerly an attorney for big labor, until Obama made him auto and manufacturing czar. Anita Dunn was the White House communications director for President Obama, who also had a strange affinity for the communist dictator Chairman Mao.
And then the third lesson and tip actually come from two of my favorite political philosophers, Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa.
Obama's science czar, John Holdren, has publicly advocated that trees be allowed to sue in court, that we should engage in drastic population control by implementing forced abortions and sterilization, and that we should design a global regime to redistribute wealth. Regulatory czar Cass Sunstein says the government has the right to nudge its citizens away from behavior that it considers unacceptable, such things as hunting and meat eating. Obama and the Democrats are admitting that their views are far too extreme for the American people ever to accept, so they do it by fiat. And Obama quietly takes advantage of the economic crisis to reward his political supporters and organizations, people and entities that would inflame the ire of the American people.
I don't believe it's too late to change course, but it will be if we don't take dramatic action as soon as possible.
That's what he said shortly after taking office in order to get a record-shattering $750 billion so-called stimulus bill passed. Moments after it made it through the Democrat-controlled Congress, that borrowed money was promptly doled out to labor unions and the extremist group ACORN, from which the president had once attempted to distance himself.
My relationship to Acorn is pretty straightforward. There is an Acorn organization in Chicago. They've been active. As an elected official, I've had interactions with them, but they're not advising our campaign. We've got the best voter registration and turnout and volunteer operation in politics right now, and we don't need Acorn's help.
But other video revealed a much closer relationship.
And I definitely welcome Acorn's input. You don't have to ask me about that. I'm going to call you, even if you didn't ask me.
Other beneficiaries of stimulus funds included a known Marxist group that advocates the overthrow of the U.S. government.
The way change is going to happen in this country is through the destruction of what we call the United States of America, and we're not going to do it.
During the 2008 campaign, Obama pretended to turn his back on extremists from his past.
You want freedom? You're going to have to kill some crackers. You're going to have to kill some of their babies.
So, do we have any problems here? What's going on? Everything okay?
Everything's fine.
I'm just making sure. I'm here. I'm just a media guy, and that's all I'm doing.
When the Obama Justice Department discovered that members of a group called the New Black Panther Party were found guilty of voter intimidation, Attorney General Eric Holder withdrew the prosecution. Democrats in Congress refused to investigate. With the economy falling apart, Obama offered no answers except to point the finger at the past administration. Of the many divisive and unpopular Democrat initiatives, the so-called Health Insurance Reform Bill stood out as vastly unpopular with the American people. Ignoring the will of the people, they passed a bill allowing the federal government to take over 1/5 of the U.S. economy.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
The Democrat establishment attacked those who protested the health care bill. By this time, the majority of Americans saw Obama, Reid, and Pelosi as the leaders of a dangerous one-party government out of control. And establishment Democrats provided plenty of fuel for their distrust.
What good is reading the bill if it's 1,000 pages and you don't have 2 days and 2 lawyers to find out what it means after you read the bill?
I don't think you want me to waste my time to read every single word in a healthcare bill.
Madam Speaker, where specifically does the Constitution grant Congress the authority to enact an individual health insurance mandate?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am.